You're listening to the No Nonsense Education podcast with Mr. Lopez, Dr. Ariza, and Miss Karen. Real conversations on Christian education, biblical truth, and the challenges shaping today's classroom and families. No fluff, no spin, just honest dialogue rooted in truth.
Well, that was lovely.
It was, wasn't it?
It was.
I agree.
And who is that we have here?
Well, I am Miss Karen, and I have been asked to join this podcast.
We needed sound reason around this table after listening to that last one.
You called me?
Yes, of course. And also, you're not temporary. That sounded a little temporary. So you're a host on the podcast.
This is our co-host,
Ms.
Karen. Well, we are
right.
happy to have you on. You have far more experience than we do, and we are excited to glean on your wisdom.
All right, so let's get right into it. Our first, or our question of the day is or should education be in the classroom, and to what capacity?
Let's think about what you just said.
I'm thinking.
You said, should education be in the classroom? I would say yes, but I think what you meant was, should AI be in the classroom?
It's already about, 4:16. We have had a long day, and I'm going to go ahead and repeat that question because we like to do that in the classroom. So I'm going to try that again.
Yes.
So our question today is, should AI be in the classroom, and to what capacity?
I think that's a great question, but before we unpack that question, I think that we have to backpedal just a little bit. So last conversation we had, we talked about our worldview. Our worldview is through what lens are we looking at the world? So I think we do have to talk about that a little bit. But then I think we also have to talk about our educational philosophy. So depending on the philosophy that you're leading with will determine whether or not AI in the classroom is good or bad. So can we talk about philosophy first?
That sounds perfect. What do you think, Karen?
Yes, let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. And I'm not talking about just philosophy in general. I'm talking about educational philosophy.
Educational philosophy. I do remember writing this.
Yes, so anyone that's at a private school.
It is a requirement.
You have written it. So educational philosophy is the next step after a worldview, right? And so our worldview, it's kind of like a map. It outlines our interactions with reality, whereas a philosophy is within that map, the route that you're going to take or the road that you're going to take to get there. So the worldview we talked about last week, talked about where we're going with all of it. Mm-hmm. The philosophy is going to talk about how we get there. So I'd love to hear from you both. What are your educational philosophies? How you get into the end goal of education?
Well, obviously we come from a biblical worldview, and so my educational philosophy was built around those parameters. So a lot for me was just how do I do education through with the basics of Christianity, right? So how do I teach kids how to know why they do what they do, or why where we are trying to get information to them, for what purpose, right? And for the ultimate purpose for us as Christians is ultimately so they can go out into the world and share Jesus with the rest of the world.
It's good. Yeah. So really focusing on that Great Commission that we are getting students ready for life, to adults, to get to that next step. Mm-hmm. How about for you? What is not only the purpose of education, but the ultimate goal of it?
I agree with what both of you said. And Lane, and for my area, I'm the preschool director in early childhood. So it is giving them those foundational skills of empathy and kindness, and teaching them who Jesus is at a very early age. And so laying that foundation around their social emotional growth to set them up for success as they move on in their higher education.
I love it. So what we're all kind of touching on here is there's different ways that we can look at education. So we can look at it from a constructionist view. We can look at it from a essentials view. We can look at it from a view, a very progressive view. So depending on the way your approach to education will determine whether or not AI should be in the classroom. Mm-hmm. So we are a little bit of all of it. So a little progressive in our approach to education, in the fact that we want to really look at what's culturally relevant, and we want to progress education into a new realm or a new way of doing it. But we also are very essentialist, if you will, because there are some classical things that are time tested that work towards what we're trying to ultimately achieve. But I would lean more into like a transformational philosophy, if you will. And so when I determine my end goal of education, it is to bring students closer, yes, the Great Commission, but also the likeness of the Lord. And so if we are all pursuing some ultimate end, which is to glorify the Lord, and it would go into telos, and I won't go too crazy on this, but our first telos would be glorifying the Lord in all that we do. We need to glorify the Lord. Our second telos would be then to do that within our individual uniqueness or our individual likeness. And so what that would be is, who am I called to be individually? How am I different? How am I unique? And so the purpose of education for me is to transform an individual student, mind, body, and spirit, into their greatest potential and who they're becoming. So also parts of those sanctification processes of becoming more Christ-like and glorifying the Lord in all that we do. And so education informs and enhances that process.
Yeah, and I think you kind of hit something in what you were explaining, just kind of brought to light a lot of things, or if you put the light bulbs on in my head, about just when I first started teaching STEAM, right? Because I used to be a STEAM teacher, just watching the students in a different realm outside of just sitting at their desk and doing or listening to a lecture and doing worksheets, but having them actually engage in, we got to get in groups, and we're going to work towards a goal on a project, and we're going to use our hands. We're going to either it's coding robots, or it's building some kind of a STEAM project as far as like something to fly, or a bridge, or trying to come together to figure out how to do something, and seeing who's the leader and who's the one who's going to just be good with their hands and putting together the project and all those different pieces, and seeing how that is teaching so many different elements of the person, rather than just rote learning or memorization and those things.
Right. Which is not to say that those things aren't important. We do have to have those things as well, but it's balancing the two. So I think the next question naturally would be, and Ms. Karen, this one's probably a good one for you, is, are the students that we're teaching today the same students we were teaching 20 years ago?
Most definitely not. So, 20 years ago, there was no tablets. There were maybe some cell phones, but very elementary cell phones, the flip phone,
Yes.
It was just a different world. And the kids didn't have screen time unless they watched a little bit of Sesame Street or Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood in the morning. Yeah. Everything was hands-on, right? Paper, pencil, the books. We didn't have the e-readers. It was very different, very hands-on.
Right. And I remember about 10 years ago at our preschool, we would recognize very quickly the students coming in that were used to having screen time, and we would have a process of about 2 weeks of a detox period where they were getting used to not being on screen. So 20 years ago, it was that separation anxiety. They were having the anxieties that came from separating from parents, and then fast forward 10 years from there, then it was separation anxiety from devices. And so I think that it's important that we consider that the world that we are operating in right now is different from the world 20 years ago. And so when we think about AI and education, I think it's naturally appropriate to consider the context in which we're talking about. So if we tried to do the same thing that we did with students 20 years ago in the preschool, in the elementary school, in the junior high, we wouldn't reach the students the same way. And so then the question is, do we have to embrace technology if we're trying to reach, for purposes of sanctification, for purposes of the Great Commission? Do we have to figure out new ways to reach students in this new cultural context?
Yeah, and I struggle a little bit with the AI because it is more of a convenience, is more of that's the word that kind of defines AI for me, is convenience. This is something that does what would normally take hours. I can get it done in a matter of seconds now. So the problem I have with it is mostly when I view education, and a big part of my own just philosophy in general when it comes to learning is learning through struggle. And so with AI, it does a lot of these things that really the students need to struggle through. So how do we balance that in the classroom and still allow them to struggle and to work through things, and to not just get the immediate satisfaction of something being done, but having to struggle through it, to really work through it.
I'm reminded of a teacher who just came in here not too long ago into the space and was super excited to share with us how engaged her students were with a robotics kit that she brought into her classroom today. And so we had a little bit of a conversation around how much easier it is to get that full engagement when it's that hands-on, something new, something different versus a traditional worksheet or curriculum activity, And so I think that if I had to answer the question simply, is there a place for AI in the classroom? I would be a yes. And I would say especially for private schools, because if we are trying to reach students for the purposes that we're reaching them, we have to reach them within their own cultural context. And I think this is biblically accurate. If you look at Jesus traveling from group to group, from city to city, he is aware of the cultural context in which he's operating in, right? And so if we want to be good stewards of education, we have to know what our students are up against. Otherwise, we look like the crazy ones who are unable to be relevant and to connect.
And so I'd almost kind of push back a little bit, just because we have so much data and so much research on the benefits of pen to paper, right? And the benefits of physical touch, right? And these different research articles that have been done. And so how do you deal with all of the overwhelming research of that? And then also the kind of not so good research, and maybe next time we can think about having the actual research papers to point to. But I know
no one
it's
cares
there.
about that.
Well, I'll just AI it and find it right now and show you.
It'll give you some fake articles, but
it might make up the article.
It will.
And that's another topic we can talk about, but next time. But so with that, right? So how do you? What's the answer to that question? Like, how do you deal with that?
I think the answer is the same to everything in life: moderation. There has to be intentionality to how you're using the technologies. There has to be intentionality into how long, at what age, what stage. So for our preschool, how often are they on screens?
They are not. So here at our preschool, I would like to say that I'm old school at the preschool, and we are going to do crayons and markers. We do not have tablets. We have minimal TV. If we put on a video, it might be on a rainy day, and it might be an exercise video or a music and movement or that type of thing. But the TVs are not on. They are building with their magnetiles. They're doing blocks. They're doing animals. They're touching it, seeing it, experiencing it. We're going to dig in that sand for dinosaur bones. We're going to explore our world. We are not going to be looking at a screen. We're up moving around.
Right. And in fact, so much so, and maybe this is our fiscal stewardship or our old school ways, but we don't even assign tablet or laptops to our preschool teachers,
No.
So everything there, go ahead.
Right. Yeah, the teachers don't have laptops. Now we have, obviously, computers in the office, and they have access to all the technology, but the teachers are not on a computer screen in the classroom as well.
Right, and I love that about our program, and even in kinder, you're going to see a lot of that mimicked as well. The screen time is super limited. There are screens in the classroom, and most of them are being used as docu-cams or to project whatever is being done on paper or the activity being done. It's really starting in first grade that we'll introduce a little more screens, and then second grade where we're getting a little closer to one-on-one with that screen time. But so to your question and in your pushback, I agree it shouldn't be all screens, but I think that we do have to make sure that our students are computer literate, that they know digital citizenship, that they are able to relate to both our timeless worldview as well as our time-bound culture.
And I think what I have to say is to that is when I have dealt with mainly adults that use technology, right? Those who grew up with almost no technology, but were kind of at that moment where, early 2000s, where it really started to be a household item, if you will. They're the ones who know how to use the AI the best, right? They're the best as far as prompting and getting what they need out of the system. So these kids are growing up in that world. So they don't have what, say, I would have when it comes to writing a paper. I know all of the structures and all of the every informational piece I need in order to write a good paper. I have that background. So some of these students are coming to AI and they're just typing in, hey, can you write this, this, and this? And what they get may seem like it's fantastic to them, and we find this out a lot. But then when someone who knows a good paper reads it, we can snuff out those things. Mm-hmm. So, I guess I understand where you're coming from, and I think that, yes, we have to have it in balance, but do we need to have those parameters? And I think we just really need to make them clear.
And I think that's such a good point. So there are new AI programs that are coming out that can detect when a student wants them to write the paper, and it will respond. It's been uploaded with the parameters of not being able to spit out a paper. It will tell them, I cannot write the paper for you, but I can be your thinking partner. And this is my other argument for why, especially in a Christian school, we need to somehow embrace AI, is that, and I think back to the doctoral program, so 2% of the world has a doctoral degree. Yeah. Of that 2%, it is very minimal, the number of Christians that have a PhD. And so when you think about the thinkers in the academic world, or you think about the politicians and the percentage of politicians that are Christian or have a Christian worldview, if we are not training up our students to be able to be culturally relevant, you're not going to have that Christian voice in the popular opinion. And so if we want to influence things on even a bigger scale, we need to be able to equip our like-minded students to be able to take on bigger degrees, bigger politics, so that we can continue to spread the gospel in those arenas as well.
So there's some benefits for sure to it, and I think it's all going to be about who are the individuals that are implementing the procedures in which the students use it as a tool in the classroom.
Right. And I think the conversation that needs to keep being had is the conversation about image bearers. So the only image bearers are humans. And so we need to make sure that we're not robbing the opportunities that come from the human creativity. And so using AI and being intentional and having good policies around AI are essential to make sure that the creative pieces of the human experience are being developed, and that AI is being used, one, to understand it so you can understand the world around you, but also as a way to spend the right time on the right things. So if I need to draft something really quick to get it out, and I'm going to use AI to assist, I think that's okay in certain scenarios. Emails, clean it up, make it better, make it more empathetic, things like that. I think that's okay when the content itself has originated with us. We are taking a fine look, reading through it, what AI can do for lesson plans and how it can free up my teachers' time so that they can then spend their time in relationship with students is amazing. And so I do want to capture some of that, but I also want to make sure we're balancing it so our teachers can be free thinkers at the same time.
Yeah. Karen?
So, Karen, do you expect AI to take over your preschool at any time?
Definitely not. I am from the thought that at the preschool level, I think we still are emerging. Our social skills are huge. We have so many kids that, and we saw this especially after COVID, right? We still talk about our COVID babies. They came from being isolated at home into a social setting. So we still need to get our verbal skills, our self-help skills, making friends, making good choices with our friends, our communication. And those are all things that are the human experience and no AI.
I agree at that preschool level. But I think we also need to be aware that we as adults have a responsibility to make ourselves available to students and to student needs, because students are turning to AI as therapists. They're turning to AI with, help me understand these feelings. If AI is more readily available than a trusted adult, then we need to do something different. I think back to a ministry role that I had at our church, and it was writing curriculum, and there was conversation around how do we reach students. There was a lot of conversation around let's get on the video games with the students, let's get on the platforms, let's advertise in the AI systems, all of those conversations. And my first reaction was like, no, we're trying to reduce screen time. But the conversation ended up developing into, but if we're reaching all nations, students are on these devices, they are on these games. We have to reach them in every corner of the nation, which are on these electronics as well. And so when you switch your perspective that way, if your intention is to get to the hearts and minds of students, you have to find out where they are and you have to meet them where they are.
Yeah, and I think that what comes to mind, and I don't know that we can mention the name or anything, but who we are wanting to work with, they have a company that basically develops a system that allows students to feed into it their interest in what they want to do and possible pathways, and it kind of just tailors their standards, if you will, what they're learning to that interest and puts them on a personal track. And in those ways, I can definitely see how we're going to help kids to kind of get on a clear path earlier than we've ever seen them get on before.
And I think that's great for the older kids, and I think that's obviously the way that our world is trending. And so to meet them where they're at and move them along in a healthy way with that good guidance, I think is really important. And I think giving them their beginning skill set at preschool without the screens, and then as they mature and grow into it, we grow with them, I think is really important.
Yeah, and I really hope that, and to speak to kind of what you were talking about almost like infiltrating, is that how you say it? Infiltrating?
You got it.
Infiltrating the culture within, right? So going out there, developing these companies that are able to do this from a Christian perspective and a biblical perspective. How can we get more of the godly mindset out there to pour in to our kids?
Yeah, and as AI began developing and getting popular, some of the conversations around it in the private school setting was, do we eliminate it completely? Do we exclude it completely? Do we embrace it? How do we embrace it? And one of the first things I did in these discussions is I turned to AI. I got on ChatGPT and I said, write a policy for a Christian school on the use of AI. And I seen what it gave.
Wait, did you say ChatGPT? Because I thought you gave it a name.
It's for another conversation.
Okay. We're not talking about...
Not my AI usage. This has nothing to do with me.
Bring up Solomon?
He's very wise. So we had...
Love to throw you off a little bit there.
Yeah, you did. Now I got to try to get back on track. So I had a well-written policy, and what I loved about it is because AI was so new at that time, about 5 years ago, that it brought up elements of AI that I didn't even know. And so my encouragement to educators would be, don't be afraid of it. Don't shut it out. Embrace it. You're going to learn along the way. When it gave me policy and it talked about LLMs, and I had no idea what an LLM was, and that is language that is specific to
Language
AI.
Model.
Yes, it is. And so when I seen those words, then it put me on the next question of what is this? And I'm researching it, and I'm going down that path of trying to figure out what it is. And so much of what we learn is discourse. And so when we get the language that is part of AI, we start getting familiar with AI, we can connect better with our students about their experiences with it. So embrace it, learn from it, learn the language. AI is probably going to be replaced by something else here pretty soon. I'm actually surprised there's not better technologies already. And when it does, embrace it, learn from it. That way you can relate and engage with your students.
And I would really like to use AI to remove the sound of the vacuum in the background because, this is just part of being a school. And
I just love that our school's being vacuumed. So
It's true. Yes, except for my office.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not in the budget.
It's not in the budget.
Right.
It's okay. Our teachers need it.
That's right. All right. Anything else to contribute to AI?
No, I don't. Thank you, though.
But that is good. I'm glad because we want to protect our preschoolers from it.
And that's what I was going to say is I think ultimately, I think there has to be a point where we instill the foundation first so that the use of AI is more, you can get more out of it and you can actually have a larger impact if they have those foundational skills built strong at the preschool level and even some in the kindergarten level. And then when they're introduced to it, they're better prepared to engage with the AI.
I think there's a Bible verse about that. Train up a child the way they should go.
What verse is that?
Well, now you called me out on that. That is a verse in the Bible, is what that is.
Use AI to look up what the verse is.
No, I will let you look it up for me.
Well,
I'm just glad I knew a verse.
you guys are going to have to keep talking for a little bit while I search.
So train up a child the way they should go, and when they're older, they will not depart. And so the idea of give that firm foundation, grow them within that firm foundation, and then you can add in some of those extras when they're able to. And if we want to go neurological, I would say that that's somewhere around the age of 7 or 8 when they're able to start going a little less concrete, a little more abstract as the brain hemispheres are starting to specialize. And so I would recommend that any AI or technology use would be in those older grades very intentionally. And then when they get into junior high, into high school, when they can use more of that rhetoric and they can talk more about what they think about it because they have opinions and experiences from the world, then you get into allowing them to make choices for themselves on it. But between the ages of about 7 to about 12, the decisions on how they use it should be made by the educator with a lot of intention and boundaries.
Okay, and I think it's Proverbs chapter...
Were you even paying attention? You were just busy looking.
Chapter 22, and then it says... Oh, right here. Proverbs 22,
if I was right.
Verse 6, it says, "Train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it."
Pretty sure that was close word to what I said. Maybe you have a
Yes.
different translation. But
Very good.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was the ESV version, in case
Thank you.
anyone was wondering.
Thank you for quoting that. Now
You're
we have no
welcome.
copyright violations.
So, did we talk about the philosophy part at all? Is there any other
We
thing
did.
you want to touch on that? Or
I do have a
recap?
question.
Yes. What is the question?
Okay, the question is, if there was no sunlight and there was no soil and there was no water, what would happen to a plant?
Well, it would probably die.
Right. Same for humans, right? We need that water, we need that sunlight. What would happen to the earth if humans disappeared?
I don't know. That's a pretty big question.
What do you think, Miss Karen?
I think the earth would continue, and I think everything would keep growing if there was still sun and rain, and the plants would keep living, and obviously it would explode into a big giant jungle with no tending, and the animals would continue to keep having baby animals and going from there, and it just turned into one big giant earth jungle.
I agree. And so we are dependent on the earth as humans, but the earth is not dependent on us. And in fact, if we weren't here, I think the earth would actually be a prettier place. I think it's the human sin and the human greed and the human gluttony that makes the world an ugly place.
Yes.
So when I think about that, it
Yeah.
puts me into the space of, then what is even the purpose of humans? And I think that's so much what our secular world is wondering. What is the purpose of humans? Why are we even here? And this is why I think it's so important to make sure that we approach each discussion from a worldview, a defined worldview. What is our purpose? Why are we here? Because when you do that, then you are better equipped to understand, well, then where do we go with all of it? And so from a Christian worldview, we were put on this earth to care for the world. And so when we are teaching and raising up the young children, it is to be good stewards of what the Lord has created. It is to be image bearers. It is to be creators. It is to struggle through things and to develop into who we are becoming. And so when you understand it through that lens, then it's easier to make the argument on, is AI good? If we are meant to steward what's here on earth and AI is on earth, then we are called to steward well within AI as well. So that would be my argument from a philosophical perspective.
And that kind of plays into our conversation earlier in our discipleship, right? So don't get nervous, but I'm going to put us all on the spot right now.
Oh, here we go.
So what was, we'll start with Dr. Risa here.
Oh.
What is your 30-second explanation for who God is?
I love this question. So I would spit back another question to you.
Don't spit on the mic, though.
Okay.
Thank you.
The question I would ask for you, if we were stuck in an elevator and you were curious who God is, I would say, have you ever wondered where this world came from? Have you ever wondered who created all there is that we encounter every day? And hopefully you would say either yes or no.
Okay.
What would you say?
I would say, well, I mean, if I wasn't who I am today,
Correct.
I would definitely say, well, I don't know. I never thought about that.
Yes, and so that is where I would start with who God is. God is a creator of everything that you encounter on a daily basis. God has given us a perfect example of how our life should be lived.
Okay. And Miss Karen?
I agree that God is our creator and he is our Father up in heaven, and he is our guide, and he loves us, and he is here to guide us through our lives.
Yeah. And that speaks to like the personal relationship with God, right?
Right.
Or with Jesus. And for me, it was always, the big question that kids always ask, right? Like if someone created this person, then who created that person and that person and that person? And then when you get to, God, then, well, who created God? And I've had that question in the classroom as well. And I would always say, well, he is the immovable mover. He's the one who doesn't change. He's the one who has always been and always is. And that's where it ends. It ends with God. God is the one who created everything. He's the one who loves you. He's the one who died for you and wants to give you all of the things that you feel are missing in your life.
Yes.
That's good. And so understanding that, coming in from that vantage point, then we can better make decisions. We can make better decisions for our use of more culturally relevant things such as AI and technology.
Yeah, and I think so much of the generations are defined by questions like that, right? Like the generation that the Y generation, or the what is the generation that was seeking who they are, wanting purpose. I can't remember the name of the generation. You guys know?
Gen Z.
Is it Gen Z?
I
think
know.
It's like every generation.
I had a cheat sheet of all the generations and the years and their identities, but I don't have it with me because I can't remember.
You could use AI if you would like.
Let's ask AI.
Let's ask AI. Okay, so what am I talking about, AI? You guys can talk about it whatever you want while I'm looking.
Well, he's looking up at AI because he's not a free thinker.
I am a free thinker, but sometimes I need to be guided in my free thinking.
Oh, so I think what I'm hearing is that you need freedom within boundaries.
Yes.
That is an educational
And,
philosophy.
Well, just scratch that whole other
Okay.
thing. Really, though, I believe that you cannot have freedom without borders.
That's good.
I really do, because
Yeah,
if you
it's
think
chaos
about it,
theory.
right?
It is.
Yeah, so if I go out and I drive and there is no streetlights and everyone is just having fun, it's not going to be fun for very long.
I think we're actually getting into an ethics conversation.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
Actually, so
Yeah.
book recommendation. So there is an ethics book that plays into a little bit of the Christian education. It's called Christian Ethics by Norman Geisler.
That's your man.
Yep,
That's who you love to read.
Yes, Norman Geisler is the guy. What would be your book recommendation for the audience here?
Well, you know that my book recommendation is going to be C.S. Lewis for this conversation.
C.S. Lewis. Which book?
All of them.
All of them. Okay, but if you had to pick one, because he has a huge...
Abolition of Men on this one.
Okay.
Because I think what we're getting now into is a discussion outside of it's inside of worldview, but stemming from worldview to your philosophy, now we're getting into more of that values-laden conversation. What value does it have? What meaning does it have? Why does any of it even matter? And so I think Abolition of Men are going to give you those answers.
Okay. And Ms. Karen, do you have anything that you want to leave us with? A Karenism, if you will? Okay, well, we'll save that for another podcast, actually.
What is your favorite preschool picture book about making good choices?
Ooh, I like that.
Ooh. Gosh.
They're whispering to each other now.
The Giving Tree.
The Giving Tree. With a little help from my friends.
Hey, does that make me AI?
Yes, it does. She is my human version of AI. Since I will confess, I personally have never used AI.
I thought you were going to say Red Giving Tree.
No, I have
Okay.
read Giving Tree.
You have been used in some of our AI generated
Yes,
photos.
I have. I have been the victim of AI. I will say that. But I
been a
personally
victim.
have not used AI.
You
and
tried to
I-
log in at one of our PDs.
I tried the chat GTP.
Yes, you did.
But I do not think I was
Chat
successful.
GPT, I
Yes,
think is the
I
correct.
don't think I was.
GPT, guys.
GPT.
I was not successful. So I need to get with it. Yes.
I mean, if you're in preschool, I think you have every argument not to. And I think
Yeah.
that we do need some sound minds still around
Okay,
here.
good.
So.
I'm going to
Yeah.
keep my mind and leave the AI for the experts.
And just when we start falling into the pit of doom, you need to pull us out.
I will pull you out. Yes,
Yeah,
that
because we
is my
have
role.
gotten a little crazy with the photos.
I don't know what
Yes,
you're talking
they
about.
We've
have.
gotten
I have been a
little-
victim. I mean, I have been in their photos. Yes.
If you don't know already, our cover image is AI generated. We did not have an artist
Man.
for that.
We just lost our entire one listener.
That's okay though, because I prompted it, and that is the new artistry.
That is.
I'm a master prompter.
I appreciate that. Okay, so when is it okay to steal a candy bar?
Oh, are we talking ethics now?
We are.
Okay.
What if somebody's diabetic and in a medical emergency? Could you steal a candy bar then?
The candy bar one is a hard one, I think.
I just made it easy.
Okay, go ahead.
My answer would be yes.
Yes. If it's to save a
If
human
it's
life.
to save a human life, yes.
Okay.
All right.
And then, of course, you'd go back to the 7-Eleven later and give them your $1.50 for the candy bar that you used to save a life. So, see, that's how it's not.
Carrie,
Exactly,
That
exactly.
sounds like you're speaking from experience.
All right, next ethics question. When is it okay to run a red light?
Ooh, well, I mean, there is an actual argument for this, or an argument about this. So, have you guys heard that if it's yellow and you're already like kind of going, you're in the intersection,
You have to
and
finish.
it turns red, you have to finish, right?
Right.
So is that considered running a red light?
No, because it was yellow when you entered the intersection.
Okay, now,
DMV 101.
so when do you, how do they,
So the only real answer, medical emergency to save a human life. If somebody is dying in the back of my car, I'm running that red light.
okay. So there's this movie that I watched a long time ago where he is getting followed by a cop, and he pulls over and he jumps out of the car and he runs around like a crazy man. He says, "Bees! Bees!"
Nope.
And they let him off because he has bees attacking him.
In
Okay.
his car, and that's why he ran the red light?
No, but they weren't actually bees. He was just, he was
Oh.
playing.
Interesting. Well, I
This is a
also
movie
think
reference, by the way.
if you're in the middle of nowhere,
I know that none of you have watched this movie.
no, that's why we're moving on.
I would run a red light if a fireman was behind me and I was blocking and I had to get out of there so he could go. I think that's okay to run a red light. If you're not going to cause an accident,
Yeah.
to run it, but to let the fire, the paramedic go to save a life.
All right. So
I think that's fair.
You're on a train.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're going to kill one person or four?
No. Either the train goes off and you kill everyone, or you turn and you kill the one person that's tied to the track.
Yeah, does quantity matter?
What do you do? It's actually one that's been discussed quite
Yeah,
often.
this is actually is it Stanford research?
I think so.
Yeah, there's a research on this.
I mean, because if you were Spider-Man, you can save both, but we're not
Right.
Spider-Man.
I guess you sacrifice the one for the majority.
Yeah.
Isn't that what Jesus did?
That's kind of a hard...
When I was saying
yeah,
it, I was thinking.
but in that he sacrificed himself, though.
He
so there's a little
sacrificed
bit of a
himself.
difference
That,
there.
that is a
Right,
little different.
right, that
but
is
I see a
different.
parallel.
Yeah.
That is one of those questions that stumped many.
Yeah, it's a rough one. That is Ethics 101 for you.
Ethics 101, and we are not experts.
Not at all. This is entry level.
It's not even entry level. This is Dr. Seuss level.
Wow.
Actually, Dr. Seuss was pretty profound
Was he really a doctor?
in his own right.
Okay.
You know, he called himself a doctor.
Hmm.
But
I guess
if he
you'd
was,
have to look that up. I'm not sure.
Can you ask Solomon?
oh, well, I don't have Solomon.
Oh.
I haven't named mine. All right, we are back.
Technical difficulties,
Yes,
as I was saying.
as you were.
We are not proponents of AI in its entirety. Programs where AI is taking over education, that is not something that our school is soon to support. What we are trying to communicate is we can't be afraid of it. It is part of our culture. We do need to understand it. We can't be naive to it. We do need to embrace it in some capacity. we need to keep it away from our young, impressionable minds. We need to keep it away from those who are not able to handle it in its entirety. But we do need to think strategically about how can we have parts of it within our classroom where students can have some freedom within limits and within boundaries so that they can then grow to be able to be our prompt writers, our script writers, our technical geniuses to be able to develop our next technology so that we can be more confident that they will be from a Christian worldview more often than not. And so we need to embrace it, and we need to be ready for the next technology that comes out so that we can have some influence in it.
All right. I think that concludes our episode 2. Thank you guys so much for listening. And also, we have a comment section in Spotify, and then as soon as we get up our YouTube, you can comment there as well. We'd love to hear some questions from you guys, our audience of one, if it may be. But you can drop that question in.
We appreciate you.
We do.
1 or 100 or 1 million. We love you all the same.
I always say it. As long as it's not just me and the wall, there's a conversation to be had.
I've heard you talking to a wall.
Anyways, that's the end of the show.
That's a wrap.
That's a wrap.